Welcome to the Greeting Card Association seminar on trade with the EU post-Brexit. We've gathered together a panel of GCA members who are all trading with Europe and around the world in some form or another. And they are kindly going to share their experience and top tips for avoiding pitfalls and help us respond to your question. We were hoping to have a chat from the Department of International Trade with us today, but unfortunately he had to drop out at the last minute. He has promised to respond to questions in writing, so we'll gather together a list of questions that we can't cover today and follow up on that later. We'll also continue to update our Brexit blog, so please do refer to that in the first instance, as a lot of the basics are covered here with many links leading to more detail on other sites. Now let me introduce our panel. I'll work my way around our screen. Michael, could I start with you, please?
Yes, hello. My name is Michael Gray of MEG Cards and Gifts. I have been in the greetings card industry pretty much all of my working life, 31 years and clocking up now. And for the last 19 of them have been a distributor of greetings cards and gifts throughout Ireland. We're based in Northern Ireland. The strapline on my website is that we distribute some of the finest greetings cards in the world, and we do. And as far as Brexit's concerned, we are absolutely smack in the front row of it. We've been living and breathing it for the last 4 years. Bizarrely, some things haven't changed at all. On the island of Ireland, it's fine. Our problem is getting stock to us in Ireland. So we've learned an awful lot in a short space of time. Amanda.
Thank you. Jed, can I ask you to...
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Jed Mason. I'm the MD at The Art File. We're based up here in Nottingham. We have been in business now for 24 years, and we export probably about 20%. 20% of our turnover is export. A few years ago, we won the Queen's Award for International Trade as well, and it's a big focus of our business. Just like everyone else, we're finding that we're having to discover these things as we go along. Really, in January, we have exported this month, and fingers crossed, I think with the only exception of one order to, in actual fact, to Michael, which has been delayed, everything else seems to be going okay at this moment in time.
Thank you. I'm just going to... David, can I come to you now?
Hello, I'm David Bowen. I'm the CEO of Swan Mill and also Great British Card Company and Ling Design. And I'm joined by Charlene Lauder, who knows more about exporting than I do. As a group, we export a lot, some of it straight out of the Orient, but a lot of it straight out of whether it's Gloucester, Bath or Swanley, and have had very mixed experiences, have tried to get ahead of the curve in terms of understanding what we should do and how we should do it. But I think it's incredibly complicated. And even if the answer is simple, our customers are concerned about how to get to that answer, and are taking a lot of reassurance from us and a lot of time, and there's extra cost, expense and worry concerned in order to make sure that we can get the product to them. So we've spent a lot of time doing it, and I welcome the opportunity to understand a bit more about it.
Thank you. Could I, David, could I ask you to talk about Easy Logistics and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi. So I'm David at Easy Logistics. I've worked within this industry for about 30 years, the last 20 as a broker. So effectively, we go to the marketplace, we find the best service, best prices for particular requirements, generally shipping parcels within the UK and internationally. We act really as a logistics manager and a customer services manager. So everything we do is about, communication and information. So if something goes wrong, we deal with it, and we'll talk to our customers, that kind of thing. So we're the ones that tend to spend the hour on the phone getting through to customer services to resolve the problem. So yeah, and I thrive on it. We deal with about 100 greeting card companies throughout the whole of the UK, some actually international ones as well. Yeah, and it's good. It's an interesting time. So yeah, we're challenged, but that's what we do.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. We're very grateful to have your expertise. Can I ask David Faulkner to introduce himself, please?
Certainly. Hi everyone. I'm David. I'm part of Cardology, and we're a company that predominantly started out selling directly to consumers. We started back in 2014. We only really got serious about selling to trade back in 2018. And then, of course, picked up our first major licensor and decided we had to get a bit more serious about these things. Like many, the pandemic's been a bit of a turning point for us. We've got hero cards that sell for over £10, and it's meant that a lot of our business has reverted back to direct consumer sales, and we've been very fortunate with the opportunities that are presented. What that means in terms of this call is that hopefully I'll bring a slightly different perspective, and maybe for some of the smaller publishers who are doing a lot of D2C sales, I can talk to some of the challenges that we've faced as we look to grow the European markets.
Thank you. Well, as I said before, in the absence of our Department of International Trade chat, we'll do our best, but let's try and answer some of your questions. The first question, and I wonder if I could turn this to you, Jeremy, is what is an ERIO number and why do I need one?
I'll just quickly introduce myself as well. I'm Jeremy from Blue Eyed Sun. We do gorgeous handmade greeting cards, and we sell into about 12 to 16 countries around the world. We won a Queen's Award back in 2016 as well. And we also buy and sell eco-friendly gifts with our partner MEG from Germany. So we have goods going in and out. And in answer to your question, an EORI number, it's EORI. It stands for Economic Operators Registration and Identification Number. The way I think about this is basically in the same way that you might sell your cards to a shop, you need to know, and they need to know, who you each are. So, you know, where's your company based? Where's the address of it? What's its company registration number, its VAT number, and you need to know their details. And then you also need to know what you're selling each other. So your card codes and your card design information, you need to be able to identify all of that so that you can build them accordingly, and you need to know the prices. So it's a similar kind of thing with the goods moving back and forth between the countries. So your EORI number, if you're VAT registered, it tends to be your VAT number with 3 zeros on the end of it and the letters GB in front of it. Great Britain is England, Wales and Scotland. Northern Ireland slightly different. I guess Michael will talk more about this, but if you do trade with Northern Ireland in or out, you're a GB company, you have to have an XI EORI number. So it's the same sort of number with XI at the front. You can't just add 3 zeros to your number, your VAT number, you must register. And what that does is it tells the government who you are, where you are, and who your customer is and where they are. And then you also, on top of that, need to have some numbers for your gifts, which are called commodity goods. And I guess we'll come on to those in a bit. But essentially it's saying, you know, person A is, or company A, entity A is trading with entity B, and they're sending a bunch of stuff, which is X products, and we need to know who these guys are and what they're sending to each other. And the reason you need to know all of that is because governments like to put tariffs on all these products and goods and services actually going between the different countries. And now that we're not in the EU anymore, we're basically not in a shared market. So we are not in the same economic trading space as we were. And we're effectively outside. So it's like how we might have been trading before with America or all these other countries. But actually these numbers affect our trade with globally. That's not just with the EU, because basically now we're not in that economic zone, we're in our own zone, and these numbers basically identify us. So the first thing that you have to do if you trade internationally is get yourself registered with these. You can go to .gov.uk/EORI, that's EORI. And if you want to know more about the trade tariffs, go to .gov.uk/trade-tariff, TARIFF.
Thank you, Jeremy. And both those links are in our Brexit blog. And apologies for not asking you to introduce yourself before.
That's okay.
You have also won a Queen's Award on export. So thank you. The second question we've got is about sending samples. And David, I'm wondering if this is something Easy Logistics know about. The question is, shipping 0 invoice value samples to places like the Republic of Ireland and Holland is something I do a lot. Do we really have to fill in all the usual paperwork for these? Hopefully not, question mark.
Well, everything has a value. So even if it's gratis, you know, you need to put a value against it. Maybe even if you put on the invoice that it's not for resale, but even if it's you know, effectively anything a bar documents has to have a value. It's going to be held up, otherwise everybody would be shipping everything with a zero value, which would cause untold problems. So yeah, it does have to have a value, and you just have to fill out the paperwork. It is what it is. Simple.
Good market samples, not for resale. Which
Yeah.
I will also add that samples as well coming to Northern Ireland, it's not just Europe, it's Northern Ireland as well, need to be treated in the same way. And again, an invoice in there of zero value or whatever.
You can't have a zero value on it. You have to have a value. Yeah.
I think I just add to that as well, in terms of all of this stuff, you have to have some form of paperwork going back and forth, whether that's via your freight forwarder or your courier company like UPS. If we use UPS to trade with Ireland, all of these numbers basically go onto your paperwork, these identifiers, and that would include the values of what you're selling, whether they're samples or whatever.
I've got a couple more questions actually that relate to Northern Ireland. So Michael, if I could put these to you. The first of which is, we have sent mixed cartons of products to Northern Ireland and had them stopped at ports. Can we send mixed cartons? And if so, do we have to have separate paperwork?
Mixed cartons are fine. As long as it's not food or animals or anything like that, mixed cartons are fine, but the paperwork needs to show clearly what that product is, and it needs to have the commodity code on it as well. But yeah, anything can be mixed into that delivery or into those
so it can be on one piece of paperwork, it's just got to have clear lines denoting what's in it.
An invoice as you would send to a shop in England is fine, but it has to have the commodity codes on it as well. And it also has to be a commercial invoice, so it needs to be signed as well, that this is a true declaration of what's in the parcels.
Brilliant, thank you. And you've actually answered the second question, which was, do I need commodity codes? And so thank you. And as Jeremy said earlier, remember you need the additional XI prefaced one for Northern Ireland.
I think, Amanda, just practically, like how that works with, because I sell to Michael in Northern Ireland, so how that works with us is we do our invoice, and we just have a little box at the bottom that says like all our EORI information, the XI number for Northern Ireland, the GB number for the UK, and then we also have the commodity code for cards, because all we sell, Michael, is cards. So if you were selling mixed products to Michael in Ireland, you might have an identifier next to each individual product on the line, but a single number for cards on the whole invoice at the bottom is sufficient, isn't it? And also the country of origin as well. We put made in England. Yeah.
So
sorry, just a quick one. Jeremy, are you on to electronic invoicing at the moment? Are you sending?
So we do send PDF invoices to our customers. Yes, we still, a lot of our customers like paper still.
But for customs purposes.
Yeah. So when we use UPS, we'll send digital stuff over. Like you can upload onto the UPS website. Yeah.
We also,
the old-fashioned way is to attach three duplicate copies of your invoice to the outside of a parcel and send that as well. That is still workable, isn't it, David? No, it's not. Okay.
No. As of yesterday, but I found out Friday. So the point being is that you need to go down that route, because that's what's been holding up so many goods. And you'll find that there are exceptions on so many emails saying, it hasn't got because we haven't got the paperwork. That's because the goods have got to the point of export before the documentation. So, if you're creating a shipment today, that will be cleared probably before it even leaves your premises. So, you've got to go down that route.
I think if I may, David and Michael, this is a really interesting area, because also the government guidance is quite clear that there are exemptions for consumers, so actual sales to individuals, and businesses for values below £135. Are you, certainly if they're sent by Royal Mail, are you saying that you're not experiencing that? Have you had different advice to that?
All over our local newspapers are, us being based in Northern Ireland, are various scare stories of people not shipping to Northern Ireland, or somebody ordering a product and getting a contact from the shippers before that they have to pay duty. So whilst there is the level that there's no fees applicable below that amount, it's not actually working in the real world. But it tends to be, it's not hard and fast. Some things are getting through, some things aren't getting through. So like a lot of it at the moment, I just don't think it's planned in and working properly.
And I think the other thing that's worth stressing, of course, as we all know, is that this is the situation up until the 31st of March. We don't yet know what's going to happen from the 1st of April onwards, do we?
No, that's all due to change.
Sorry, why is that?
Because it hasn't been written down yet.
No, I see. Okay. Gosh, it's
We're
lovely.
saving 350 million for the NHS, so
So David, can I just clarify? When you say that doesn't go through on the goods anymore, so we don't need to be adding the additional copies onto the pallets, or?
Well, so my understanding and where I'm looking at is www.gov.uk/guidance/sending parcels between Great Britain and Northern Ireland from 1st of January 2021. I'll make sure this link goes out afterwards, but it's quite clear that there's 2 exemptions. So anything going to consumers, individuals, until the end of March, shouldn't need any of this paperwork, shouldn't need any declarations. Similarly for businesses, up to £135, the government says that you don't need to do that either.
Okay.
So what I'm taking from this is put as much information as you can on each piece of paperwork, and it's sort of belt and braces. You just need to put it all on there, and certainly these area numbers are key. One of the questions that we've had about that is that do we, it's my belief we can only have one, but we've been asked to provide another. Now, we've obviously covered that Northern Ireland, you need an additional one, but obviously in many instances you need to be quoting your customer's area number as well, don't you? Is that correct?
You can have more than one EOI number. We also have one for Germany as well.
Right.
So you can have one for every European country, actually, that you're VAT registered in. So you can have more than one.
Okay, thank you. That's answered that question. Thank you, Michael. Just on
should we just clarify actually the VAT registration while we're there? Michael, do you need to be VAT, because there's a question on Amanda's list actually about, do you need to be VAT registered in France to trade with a French customer? And my understanding is that you don't need to do that, but what's been your, why are you VAT registered in Germany out of interest?
We sell business to consumer.
Right.
And we've hit the VAT threshold in each of the countries that we sell to. And we also hold stock in each of these countries as well. And we sell on Amazon, do an awful lot of business with Amazon. So we have stock in their warehouses. And because of that, we have to be VAT registered throughout Europe. And then once you have that registration there, you can get the EORI number. But to do business in France or Germany, no, you don't have to be registered there.
No, thank you. Yes, thank you for that, Jeremy. Yes, I also spoke to Brian at Abbott Print actually about that, because he does a lot of business with France, and he actually made the point that he thought it was actually potentially the EORI number that the French company was referring to, and he made the point that he always quotes both on every piece of paperwork, his own and his customers, just for clarity. But yeah, can I just go back to the invoices a minute? And David, and again, I think this is probably an easy logistics area. We've had a question in, should invoices have a particular format? Is there a recommended template?
The answer is yes. I can send a copy, or we can, let you have a link, which, which shows it as much as anything. So, yes is the answer. Okay,
well, look, that would be great, David, if you can do that. And obviously,
what basically goes on that, David, that's most important? What are the requirements? What are the essential things you've got to have on that? I mean, presumably you
well, obviously from to, you need to have the codes as accurate as you can, otherwise they're not going to get charged the right duties on it. It used to be that it needed to be signed. Well, now it's electronic, it doesn't need to be signed. I guess that's the long and the short of it. It's fairly sort of simple.
So the address, all the details of the person, contact details of the person that's shipping and the person that's receiving, commodity codes, all the things we're talking about. There's nothing extra on top of that, the ORI codes, that kind of thing.
You have to have Incoterms on there.
I guess so, yeah.
And do you have to have the EORI number of the person you're sending to as well on the invoice? Because that's a new one for me.
Well, certainly that.
If you've got it, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Charlene, do you want to clarify your point?
Yeah, I believe so, that we've been asked by our freight forwarders to ensure that we have both ours and the customer's EORI number on the invoice.
No, well, that was
I don't think you can have too much information on there, really, as far as they're concerned. So, you know, if you've got it, put it on there. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Well, certainly, if you know, we'll share your template, David, and obviously for people watching, David's details will are in the suppliers members directory under logistics. We can link the two together. Thank you very much. Can I just go back to another question on tariffs, because a lot of this is around that, and this leads into sort of really VAT and import duties on smaller packages. The question is there an EU-wide exemption to import duty on packages up to the cost of €22? So these are people supplying B2C. Previously, there was a waiver on goods up to £15. If that's not still the case, consumers are faced with having to pay additional duty on packages ordered from the UK that they receive. And that's obviously been in the press quite a lot this weekend, with people over here saying they've been asked at point of delivery for more to pay costs on things that they've ordered. David, is this something that Cardology can have experienced?
We've certainly experienced it. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, because obviously there's a bit of an upside for some of us at the moment, because previously you'd have had a situation where you're selling to a consumer within the EU, not a business but a consumer, and of course you're having to declare that on your VAT returns for those of us who are VAT registered. So we've now immediately got 16.67% additional income margin coming in on those sales. But the problem is, at the moment, there is a point of supply issue. There is taxation at point of importation. And that's going to continue until a point down the road that I'll talk to in a minute. What that means is that as goods kind of transfer into the other countries, they may be eligible both for import duty or import VAT, but also any additional tariffs. Now, as the GCA blog shows, there are no additional duties on most of the products that we will sell. Now, for those of you who've got particular things like badges or things like that on your cards, you'll need to check those. But for basic paper goods, you won't. The interesting bit is that there is still a threshold below which you don't pay import duty. Now that's up to €22, and that's not, the customer won't have to pay that until the 1st of July. What we do to kind of make that work, obviously we've got, our standard customer envelopes going out. We just stick a CN22 document on the back, and we're very clear, all the information that we previously talked about, but we put the value in as it is, as we've sold it. Now, for most of those orders, if it's just a consumer buying a card, that's way below €22. Therefore, there should be no reason that package is stopped. Now, what's really interesting, and again, this doesn't constitute advice, but one of the things that, of course, there's nothing to stop customers doing is saying, I want to order a bigger order than that, but I want to split that over different deliveries. So actually place different orders with you, all of which would go below the low value consignment relief level of €22. Now, what the customer has to bear in mind, and the kind of juggling act, is actually, do the increased cost of postage offset the import duty they pay, but also the fees that the courier or the postal service would charge for recovering that import duty at the same time. And it may well be, in some instances, it's worth splitting that order down into smaller packages. This is the situation up until the 1st of July. After the 1st of July, the situation changes. And what happens is that whereas it was import duty at the point of importation, that duty is then moving to apply to the point of supply, which is exactly what EU businesses are faced with us from the 1st of January. So that's going to be really interesting, and will really bring changes, further changes that we'll need to understand in more detail about exactly how we do collect that VAT and make it available to other countries from that time.
So as I understand it, at the moment, duties are due on goods over €22 at point of sale or point of delivery.
Sorry, not point of sale, point of importation at the moment to the EU. So that is why people, basically the couriers are paying it where it goes in the country, and then that's being recouped along with a handling fee for the courier's time.
Brilliant. Okay, now No, I understand it now. Thank you. Well, it's not brilliant, but
There was a piece in the Sunday Times this weekend showing that that's anything but clean, and that consumers are being charged at point of delivery by the courier, and in some cases not knowing whether to pay or not, and some of those amounts are worth more than the product.
I think that's true, and I think the other thing that you've got to be really clear if you're running a consumer website is making clear what your Incoterms are. So actually, are you delivering duty paid DDP, or are you doing DAP, where it's actually the consumer is responsible? I think anything that you can do at the moment, or anything all of us can do to make sure that information is going down, is very clearly on your customs declaration, is going to help get those products through as quickly as possible.
yeah, and yeah, I think you're right. I mean, communication is clearly key. And I read the same article, David, and you know, obviously in the back of this sort of confusion then comes you know, criminals trying to extort money, you know, and I think it's just that thing of making communication on your website very clear, and obviously with your supply chain, but it's
yeah, and another complication is returning product, of course, which makes that very difficult too, because that transaction, if there is a problem happening in reverse, is almost impossible, I would have thought.
Yes, it's not clear at all, is it? Well, I think, you know, what will be useful is I will take some of these questions back to our DIT and BIS contacts and see if we can get a bit more clarity on them for members, because
if I can as well, Amanda, I think there's a really good article. The clearest that I found is actually on the Royal Mail website. So again, I'll make sure we've got that link circulated as well. I think it explains it. It explains the principles, although to David's point, not necessarily practicalities, but the principles really clearly.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I just go back to tariff codes for the next question, please? I'm aware that we need to include tariff codes for products. For most of our products, this is easy, and as we've already said, the codes for cards are on our website, but there are a couple that don't easily fit into a category. We've made the best guess. What are the implications of getting this wrong? David, is this something that easy logistics?
Yeah, well, I mean, the implication of getting the wrong code is getting the wrong duty applied. So, you know, it's important that you do get the right codes. You know, there is an ability to look it up, I guess. Sometimes the product isn't easily categorized, in which case I think you can get your own codes specifically for that particular product if it's a new product. Yeah, so yes, it's important to get the right codes. I guess there aren't that many, are there, within this particular sector? It's probably slightly simpler.
I think most of it's straightforward. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Michael. I don't know if that's something that you come across.
Yeah, I have had experience of this, and obviously greetings cards are the same, so it's okay, it's one code, but where a lot of companies have ancillary products as well, they can get caught out. And a number of years ago, I imported a product from China, bought it myself, and I left the commodity code side of things to my shippers, who knew exactly what they were doing, and it seemed they did until I got a commodity code inspection. And HMRC will come in and check your commodity codes, and if they're out, they want their money for the exact amount of what it was. And we went for a 3-week inspection, which wasn't nice at all. And at the end of that inspection, we'd, for instance, put a keyring at the wrong code and a pencil case at the wrong code. We actually owed HMRC an awful lot of money. It also turned out that they owed us an awful lot of money. And the difference in between wasn't that much, but we had to pay that money, and then we had to reclaim the money. And there was a period about 4 weeks in between where we were out that money, which was very painful. So it is important to get the commodity codes right from the start. And how we did with it, you can work out most commodity codes quite simply, but the ones that are a bit awkward, you can actually send that off, and it's 5 years now since I did it, and get it confirmed by the government exactly what commodity code that is, and you get a certificate as well, which confirms it. So it is really important to get your commodity codes from the start, because it will come back and bite you at some stage. So
that's really useful information. Thank you. I'll move on to the next question. We have had a lot of questions about rules of origin, which, as I say, we were rather hoping the government could help us on. I actually attended a trade association government forum on this very subject last week, and we all from our different industries were asking the same sort of questions. BIS has offered to work with trade associations such as ourselves to map the rules of origins for our industry. So I will keep chasing them up on that promise, because I think it would be very useful. And if we do get more information back, we'll put it on the website as soon as we do.
I think that's also somewhere that it isn't understood exactly what details you want, because we're being asked for factory details as well as country of origin, all sorts of things. So I think there's a lack of understanding as to what level of detail is required. So any information, it goes into the general sort of bucket of things that aren't understood, but there are customers who are querying the level of information they need as well, and that's something that we can give advice on.
Yeah, okay, no, thank you very much. I think so. Just to sort of try and cover a couple of questions from members on this subject. The first one was, we import products from China to the UK and then subsequently export to Europe. Our understanding is that because greeting cards are not subject to further tariffs, there are no further charges. David, is this something Cardology have experience of?
Yeah, I mean, given the complexity of our designs, a lot of our work is produced in the Far East. So it's worth, and if this is too noddy for anyone, apologies. It's worth differentiating again between the import VAT and kind of the additional tariffs, and making that distinction really clear right at the start. So same as always, you're going to be paying your 20% import duty on the product coming in from the Far East, from outside the EU, from outside the UK now. The difference is, and this is actually one of the few real benefits of Brexit, I think, is that it's encouraged the government to look at duty deferment accounts. And it's really worth looking if you're a publisher about what that means, because essentially, rather than paying your big import duty up front, you can defer that to your quarterly VAT return, which really helps with the cash flow. So you're going to pay that, but as we've covered earlier, there are then no additional duties on top of that, because the preferential rate and the standard rate is 0% on most of the products we sell. You've then got the issue that you are then going to pay import duty if you're then kind of bringing it into the UK and then shipping it to Europe. Of course, again, you're going to have some import VAT to pay as well, or some your customers will have some export VAT, or you will, whoever is picking up that and whatever you've negotiated with them. So it's about being clear then. But again, no additional duties, customs duties, should be payable on top of that.
No, thank you very much. And that ability to defer sounds very useful. So thank you very much for mentioning that. And just another question on rules of origin. Where should we go to navigate rules of origin for the various situations? David, have you found a link that was particularly good on that?
Yes, I have. There's a couple. There's both kind of for exports, but also for imports as well, both on the government site. And what I suggest is we circulate those at the end of this call, and make sure they're up on the blog as well.
Okay, I know we've got one of them on there, but yes, and that would be great if we can add to that, because it's not straightforward when you include a third country or more. Although listening to one of the car manufacturers on the call I was on last week, I thought it shouldn't be that hard for cards. So I would hope that they answer our questions fairly quickly. Can I just move back to just sort of general help on this? And David, I was really hoping that you could just sort of perhaps chip in with here. One of the questions that came in from our members is, does the panel believe there's a commercial benefit to using a consultant? And if so, can the GCA recommend any consultants I could discuss our situation with? Now, I know you're very busy at Easy Logistics, but are you happy for people to contact you, David? Is that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, just chuck anything at us. The reality of it is we can either deal with it and advise or not, as the case may be. And if we can't, then we know a man that can. It's as simple as that. We're, we don't take on board anything that doesn't fit our remit. We have our place and we do our things, and it's as simple as that. So, I guess we just work off of no bull. It is what it is, and this is what we do. So, yes, gladly.
That's great. And certainly, if we can gather other people who are, able to help similarly, we will, put that information out to members as well. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything, having experience of working with.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've come across, and Charlene knows more about this than I do, is the question of power of attorney, which has come up increasingly and seems to be an extra layer of complexity. I don't know, Charlene, if you want to say that.
So we've had to, this is one of our stumbling blocks, that we were unaware that we'd need to sign power of attorney over to our freight forwarder in order for them to handle our customs clearance before we ship any goods. So it was important for us to do a bit of research there and find, make sure that we had the right freight forwarder that was going to give us seamless delivery. So we've recently signed that over to one of our to one of the freight forwarders for Ireland, and then we're looking to do the same with our deliveries into the rest of export. But yeah, that was something that kind of wasn't made clear before moving into this. So I wonder if anyone else has had that experience as well.
Yeah, we have. We've had two. Holland and also Hong Kong, funnily enough. So it would seem the whole thing is spreading out, and more people are jumping on this one, certainly.
Yeah, we had the same thing with our Australian customers. We have distributors in Australia, and their freight forwarder sent us something similar sort of thing through. And when you read the detail of it, it's quite like, wow, so I think for sure there's a whole load of legal questions around this sort of thing, but also GDPR, design rights and all that. And Amanda and I have been talking about doing a second seminar for that with lawyers who would be best to advise on legal matters, I guess. But it is something to be aware of, I guess.
No, thank you. And thank you for raising it, Charlene, because that's not a question that's come in yet. But as I think we're finding, a lot of these questions are hitting people a bit further down the road. And it's clearly one that's going to come up more, I'm sure.
And it's interesting that it's that people from Hong Kong and Australia, which we found as well, Jed, are asking that question. So it's the changes have affected outside the EU as well. The ramifications are not just about Brexit and that mess. There are customers that are outside the EU as well, which you wouldn't have predicted coming into this.
We've had similar with Norway. We'd never had any issues with them delivering to there before, but in the last week or so, it was apparent we needed to get details of import agents and so on. So yeah,
I think like the thing for everyone to remember is watching this is beforehand, Australia and America and Norway and all these other countries, even Switzerland, which is not in the EU, we're trading with the Eurozone when they traded with us, and all the tariffs that were agreed by the Eurozone with all those other countries, we're not in the Eurozone anymore. So they're dealing with a different entity, Great Britain / UK, because it's sort of both. So I think, that's why these numbers, these EORI numbers, need to be on all your export documentation, I think, and the commodity codes as well, if you can, just to facilitate the flow of these goods. And as David said earlier, the digital invoicing will mean that you can get approval before the goods actually leave you. So you don't get a situation where stuff arrives to the port and doesn't get on the boat, or worse, gets on the boat, gets to the other country and doesn't get let in. So super important. You've got your paperwork.
It's a good point, Jeremy, and I think actually with you being an ambassador of Sage as well, because I think there's going to be a high level of integration going to be needed for all of our accounts packages, and I assume that Sage and everyone else, we use Exchequer, are going to be focusing on this right now, because the additional time that it is taking to raise invoices and everything is something that needs to be speeded up and automated, obviously.
They have actually just done an update, and I loaded it on over Christmas in the hope that it would sort out some of these things. But interestingly, they had a space to put your EORI number, but not in the customer and supplier records, which I was quite surprised by. So I'm going to be on the phone to them to get that sorted.
Trouble is, it's all been so 11th hour, hasn't it?
And I think in the terms of no surprises, the other one that surprised us is the Channel Islands, which we didn't see coming either. And we've got quite a lot of business in the Channel Islands, and that has caught from surprise, because I thought the Channel Islands was part of the UK. So that requires special treatment as well, which is a watch out.
Is that something you could add to at all? Just in terms of you clearly need area numbers, or is it anything else there?
We're waiting on clarification of the EURI numbers. When I look online, it differs depending on website I look at. So I'm waiting on clarification at the moment because we have a customer in Jersey that's due for delivery soon. So we're waiting on clarification from the carrier about exactly what information they need.
I think it depends on the size of the delivery, because if you're sending it out by UPS or the equivalent, you might be able to get away with it, but from the different sites, they're bigger deliveries. So it's a question of how much you're sending.
And is the Isle of Man part of that, I wonder? Does that fall into the same?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, that's something, again, is, we'll, it would be useful to, hear if you get anything back, Charlene, that we could share. But certainly, we'll have that for our questions for the DIT. Thank you. I'm just going back to the members' questions here, and I've got another logistics one. If we ship to Europe, is it best to have the purchaser arrange for the collection of goods as opposed to us arranging the delivery and shipping them? If so, what would be the main benefit of arranging shipment in this way? David, could I ask you, please?
Well, it's a difficult one to answer because it's all about responsibility and control. So, if you're organising the shipping, you have the responsibility. You also have the control, but you also take on the hassle if there's a problem in that shipment. So, I mean, many people work off of Ex Works, which means that you lose that responsibility for the product once it goes beyond your back doors. I think it's down to personal preference. It all depends also on rate structures. Sometimes it's easier or cheaper to export than it is to import because it's based on volumes. So, it's a difficult one to answer. I think every single case is different. I mean, I don't know what experience others have got with Ex Works, what they tend to want.
We do quite a lot from a Ling GBCC perspective, Ex Works, but fundamentally, you still got to get the information right for your customer. So whether you're dealing with the paperwork or the transaction, we still need to work with the customer to make sure that their information is correct. So traditionally, it's been quite easy. You put it into the freight forwarder, it's a straight Ex Works deal. But it has become more complex because someone who may be dealing a different language is trying to navigate their way through this as well. So it is taking more time and effort. It's not a simple transaction like it used to be.
We've been advised potentially that FCA is an option to move on to from Ex Works as well, whereby we do the export paperwork on behalf of the customer with freight forwarder, and then forward the charge on. So we've been advised that may be a better route.
Okay, well, that's useful. Thank you. Yes. Anything anyone wants to add to that, Jeremy?
I was just going to say, David, it might be useful for people if you clarify the difference between Ex Works and free on board. And was it FCA you said, Charlie?
FCA. So the FCA is free carriage, but we do the export on behalf of the customer.
David Bowen, I was talking to. Yeah, just what those terms mean for people exporting.
I couldn't really, I don't know, Jeremy, how to kind of explain, to be fair. I'm not entirely sure how you would.
But my understanding of it, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding was that Ex Works is like David Bike said, it's when it leaves your back door, so your customer will arrange for their freight forwarder to come to you, collect it, put it on a lorry, take care of the paperwork. You send them the invoice and everything.
Yeah.
And get their freight forwarder in. Free on board means you've got to get it to the port and on the boat. And similarly, like David White said, you've still got to make sure there's good communication with paperwork and everything that's got the right numbers and stuff. But some countries, perhaps there are some charges with the free on board as opposed to the Ex Works, because you might have the cost of, for example, getting the goods from your back door to the port and onto the boat.
Yeah, there's a whole complexity because there is also another one where you can deliver it to the port in the country of delivery as well. So there are a number of different ways and mechanics which require different paperwork. I can't remember, is that DP?
DP, I think.
DDP, that's right, yeah. DDP, yeah.
I think the thing that I would add to this, because I'm a real layman with this, by the way, I'm not an expert at all, is you know, the freight forwarders and the couriers have a big role to play in all of this. You know, they really offer a lot of guidance, you know, with and can help with these kind of things to facilitate. So, you know, do check with them when you're with your customer, but also with the freight forwarder. So when we're shipping stuff to Australia, for example, we will email our customer, email the freight forwarder and CC the customer in with copy invoices, you know, that it's ready to be picked up. This is the size of the parcels, this is what's in them, this is how much they weigh, and the dimensions of the parcels, all that kind of information, which on both sides they need, because the customer is paying that freight forwarder as well. So they want to know that, you know, they're paying a fair, that they're paying according to the terms they've agreed with their freight forwarder. So I think it's really important to keep them in the loop. And a lot of the freight forwarders do seem to be quite on the ball with, for the most part, you know, being able to help. So, you know, don't worry is what I'm trying to say about having to figure out understanding every last single bit of this. You know, look at the government guidelines, but also talk to your freight forwarders.
Thank you. I think that's really good advice.
The only other thing I was going to say, Amanda, is that obviously a lot of our publishers will have sort of very good contact and relationships with their established distributors, and I think it's just working very closely with them. It's I think going forward, it's going to be a little bit more challenging if you want to suddenly sort of supply a card shop in Torremolinos. That might throw out some challenges for everyone. But our established distributor routes, we work very closely with Michael, and you know, those conversations are just going to be carrying on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, and that's really important work with your supply chain. But I think I'd also say, you know, to you and anyone listening, you know, if you do find, and we've got one link on our Brexit post to one of the couriers sites that are quite good. We'll add the Royal Mail one, David, that you mentioned. But if anyone does find you know, some useful links, just let us know and we'll share them with members. Great. Can I just, on this sort of similar subject, Michael, if I could just come to you, because I had another question from an Irish relating to Ireland, actually. And this was concerning a four-text document. We've been asked by our Irish distributor to complete a four-text document that we are told will allow their carrier to complete the necessary export documentation on our behalf within the UK system. And I'm assuming that may be even linked to this power of attorney issue that Charlene mentioned. They're estimating that there's a charge for this around £50 per consignment. The question is who should be liable for this cost, but I wondered, Michael, if you were able to elaborate on that area at all.
Well, I actually don't know what a four-text document is, because we've not had to, because we're in Northern Ireland, we are very different from Ireland, so it's not something I've come across yet. But what I would say about any cost involved in the post Brexit area, it's a negotiation as to who pays for it. Yeah, it's got to work out for all parties, because if it doesn't, people aren't going to buy and people aren't going to sell. So if there's extra costs there, then they've got to be negotiated. It's not a firm saying, well, you've got to pay or you've got to pay. That's part of the deal that's struck.
Are there any other differences, key differences between trading with Europe and trading with Ireland that you're able to highlight for us? Because that was another question on Ireland. I don't know if you're able to comment on that.
Trading with Ireland, so the Republic of Ireland, you're trading with Europe. So it's exactly the same as France or Germany. It's Northern Ireland that's the anomaly. And that's when the XI numbers come in. And goods are delivered duty-free to Northern Ireland. When we then transfer them across the border, we actually have to pay duty if duty is payable to sell in the Republic of Ireland. So it's very strange. Northern Ireland's in a little purple patch, actually, where we have a foot in both customs arrangements that once it's in Northern Ireland and we've cleared it there, we can sell across Europe without any paperwork whatsoever. So we're putting some things into Germany that are on sale within 24 hours, and it's amazing. And now we've actually got the route sorted out into Northern Ireland. It's quite smooth. But no, Ireland is exactly the same as France, Germany, Italy, wherever. My understanding anyway. So
great stuff. Well, I will add, Michael, that your details are also in our members directory, because it may be that people listening actually do want to contact you and talk about this further, if that's all right.
but very happy to help if I can. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I've got one final, I'm just looking at the clock, and I've got time for one final question, which actually links to, I'll read it. I buy from a supplier in Germany who sources their goods from China, which they pay tariffs on when the products enter the EU. So we're back to the rules of origin. The question is, do my Irish customers have to pay the duty again when we sell the goods onto Ireland, even though the duty has already been paid by the German supplier? I think this links into what you were talking about earlier, David, with Collegeology's experience. I don't know if you want to comment on this.
It would be helpful to kind of understand what the routes of shipping are. So I think the key thing is, obviously, as Michael's just said, if you've got a way of getting it where it doesn't come into the UK or certainly Great Britain, then I think from the sound of what I've heard, it sounds like actually that could go directly, which might be a lot easier all ways round. But yeah, I don't know if others got different views on that.
The danger, of course, when it goes directly is that that German supplier suddenly thinks, why would I be doing business with my UK customer when I can just deal directly with with Ireland, hassle-free? And that can throw up all sorts of problems. But yeah, if something comes from China to Germany to UK to Ireland, it's just duty all the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anything else anyone else wants to add, or we've perhaps missed and should be?
I don't think one should underestimate the cost of all of this. It was mentioned, I think, £50 a transaction. I think that's possibly slightly more than we've estimated, but even so, the cost to business and the ability, the requirement to, I suppose, maximise or minimise the number of transactions and maximise the value of the transaction is absolutely imperative in this, so that we can, I imagine the smaller publishers will look at this and think, oh my God, but for the larger publishers, possibly there's some economies of scale here, but it's a mess, and there's a lot of cost involved. Michael, you referred to it being a negotiation. I absolutely agree. One has to find someone who's going to pay for this, and we've got to work together in order to do that.
Well, hopefully over the next few weeks, a lot of things will become clearer. But certainly we'll keep our members library and this blog post up to date as much as we can, and we'd really welcome comments from people listening and further questions, and we'll work hard to secure answers. I'm sorry, we have run out of time now, so I know we haven't covered all the questions, but we will, as I say, endeavour to get answers and respond individually to members, and where necessary add them to the blog. Can I just say thank you very much to our panel for your time today. We really appreciate the time helping members to navigate these clearly tricky waters and share experiences. And I think what's come out of this is that actually it's very clear that at the moment this is all very new and nobody really has the answers. We're all trying to work our way through it. And let's do that together. I think certainly, as Jeremy said, I think we will hold another panel discussion and also return to some of these issues, and particularly the rules of origin, if necessary. So please just add comments to below this blog so we can, as I say, understand where the problems are. Can I just say thank you very much again to everybody, and we'll speak to you again soon. Many thanks. Bye-bye.